Hello and welcome to Uncommon Law, my podcast about true stories from my life experience of over 50 years as a lawyer and trial judge. This is a look at the law from the inside out, stuff they don't teach in law school. This is Judge Rudy Greco, retired justice of the New York State Supreme Court. I first met Harry Ford on a warm, humid August night at Casino Park in Flushing, where I was running football drills. I was the head coach of the Queensboro Hill Jets, a Pop Warner Senior Division team. And the Senior Division was limited. It was a sandlot football team, tackle football, and it was limited in age and weight for insurance purposes. The age limit was 26-year-old. You couldn't be older than 26. And the weight limit was 225 pounds. You couldn't be more than that. And Harry rolls up, and he looked like a surfer from Southern California. Here's a guy, he's wearing a cut-off, no-sleeve T-shirt, cut-off jeans, some beat-up boat shoes, deck shoes, really scuffed and beat up, no socks. He's got tousled hair, white blonde hair with a white blonde mustache. And he's hauling a canvas bag with his football equipment in it, helmet and shoulder pads and stuff and cleats. And he come up and he said, "Hi, I'm Harry Ford. I'm here to try out." Well, I said, "We don't have tryouts, but you want to work out with us, it's no problem. You know, you're welcome to work out." We never tried out anybody in that formal sense. Guys just drifted in. And Harry looked good. He said, "I'm a running back." And he looked the part because he was about 5'10", about 185, rock solid. No fat. You couldn't find an ounce of fat on this guy. And he fit the weight limit, and he said he was a running back, and you had to be about that big to be a good running back. And sandlot football is a funny thing. It's a very dedicated breed of people. Harry came from quite a distance away in Queens County, almost on the Nassau border, I think, from Douglaston. And the guys who play sandlot football are pretty dedicated by virtue of the fact that you got to play under lousy conditions. We have no locker rooms or no good changing facilities or weight or training facilities or rubbing tables or anything of that nature. These guys change clothes in and out of uniform in the weeds or behind trees in the hot summer with flies, or in the cold winter freezing. At night, we practice 2 nights a week on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and we played on Sunday mornings. 10, 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings, where we didn't almost invariably have a nice crowd of about 2,000 people watching the games. And nobody was cut from the team. Guys cut themselves. If they couldn't take the routine and the hardship and the inconvenience, they would leave. And we maintained a roster of about 40 ball players. And this particular team, QBH Jets, in Flushing, was sort of a microcosm of America. We had guys from every race, religion, and background that you could possibly imagine. We had immigrants, American-born guys, all sorts of guys. It reminded me, the team's makeup reminded me of those old-time, corny war movies where the guys would come together from all parts of the country, and city guys and farm boys and everything in between, crooks, straight shooters, and bond together and under hardship and combat and training, and become, the virtual so-called band of brothers. And that's the way this team was. And anybody that played sandlot football was dedicated. The guys came from high school teams, former sandlot players, or they came from college teams after college, or some of them even came from pros, had played in pro football, or had been cut or injured, and they were addicted to football. And they didn't mind that. I mean, it was terrific risk of injury. The conditions, as I said, were terrible. These were working guys. You weren't getting paid. There was no money. And we played on fields that were questionable at best. They were public fields, and sometimes there were rocks on the fields. Every once in a while, there was glass on the field. You never know what the hell you were going to find out on the field, depending on what happened the night before. And the guys were really, really dedicated guys. And we had drills, and Harry joined right in the first night, and every night thereafter, the drills, we had 2-on-2. We had 2 defensive linemen against an offensive lineman and a running back, or 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. We had these small drills, and they were punishing drills. And mostly the defensive ball players did the punishing because they were the guys that hit the offensive guys. And defensive ball players could use their hands, where on offense you couldn't. It's hard to be an offensive lineman. You have to do your job without using your hands. And Harry was a ball carrier. And so he would get hit. So the defensive guys were used to dealing out physical punishment. But the problem with Harry was he was a strong, hard runner and a hard-nosed piece of work. Harry was a punishing runner. He was the only guy the defensive guys feared tackling. And when Harry hit you or you made contact with Harry, you knew it was Harry because you heard this loud kind of a noise that brought a shudder. If your back was turned, you know it was Harry that made the contact because you could hear that noise. You could hear that really, loud thud of Harry hitting somebody. And he became a star player on our team and won instantaneously. The guy had the goods. He was a godsend. He became a star, and everybody recognized him for what he was. And everybody respected everybody on the team because they all worked hard and they were all dedicated guys. And it came to be said, it was commonly said about Harry Ford could run through a brick wall. And we believed it. Harry went on. After a couple of seasons with us, he became a firefighter, and because of the hours in firefighting, he also became a stagehand, where he had a connection. It's a very good union in New York, and he was a regular relief man because he would have a regular job relieving stagehands who maybe called in sick or had their days off or vacation days, and Harry made a nice living doing that. He went on to nice career in football. He continued on because he became a member of, after he was 26 years old, he became a member of the fire department's tackle football team. They used to play against the police department in a big game, a fundraiser every year, and other fire departments around the country and police departments around the country. And Harry was a star player, and he had an illustrious career as a football player at the fire department, but he even had a more illustrious career as a firefighter in the fire department. Harry was decorated 10 times for valor, and he became the driver of the Rescue 4 truck in Queens County. And the fire department maintains a rescue truck in every county, in 5 counties in New York City. And Queens truck was Rescue 4. And Rescue 4 is a unit of elite firefighters. These are like the commandos of the firefighting force. These are the guys that go and get other firefighters that are trapped and rescue them, or civilians who are trapped in bad circumstances. And Harry had the position of honor on his shift. He would drive the truck, which was entrusted to the guy who everybody else respected. Harry drove the Rescue 4 truck, and I want to get back to one of the decorations that he had for valor. He was highly respected in the department, and this is one of the reasons why. Harry was found in one fire in the back of the building, on the floor, unconscious, rolled up in a fetal position with no mask, surrounded by dense smoke, almost invisible. And his buddies dragged him out of the fire, pulled him out on the sidewalk, and stretched out his body when they found that his fetal position was sheltering a little girl who was 2 years old. And Harry had no mask on, and the reason he had no mask on when they found him was the little baby girl had the mask on. And his friend said, "Harry, what were you thinking?" And Harry said, "I was waiting for you bastards to show up." He says, "And I thought you weren't going to make it. I did a quick calculation. I said, I'm buying the ticket here. This is over for me." He says, "And I had a life. And I thought this little girl, she never had a life. She's about 2 years old. She's an infant." He said, "So I gave her my mask. And I hoped if I sheltered her that she would survive and go on to live." And that was Harry's mentality. You can't make this stuff up. And his stature in the fire department was pretty much that of living legend. I mean, with all those decorations, and that allowed him to speak very freely and voice his opinion whenever he wanted to. And he wasn't outspoken unless he was provoked. And in one instance I heard about from some other firemen, they told me there was a big fire. It was a multiple alarm, 4 or 5 alarm fire. And a battalion chief showed up right in front of the TV cameras, the news cameras, and proclaimed, "I'm in charge here." And Harry was right next to him, and Harry was annoyed. And he turns around and he looks at the guy who was a big mucky muck in the fire department. He says, "Yeah, you're in charge," he said, "until the TV cameras go away, and then you leave the rest of this mess to us to clean up." He said, "You're in charge, all right." Now, the guy, really, he was aggravated, but he looked and he saw it was Harry Ford that said that to him. He just bowed his head and turned away and walked away quietly. He knew better than to challenge Harry. And that's the kind of status that he enjoyed in the fire department. Well, years later, there came a time, actually, it was Father's Day in 2001. It was June, mid-June. And there was a terrible fire in Astoria. It was a warehouse fire, a storage facility for a janitorial and building supply company. So the fire was started inadvertently by some kids who were fooling around with matches or something and graffiti. I don't know what they were doing, but the fire started, and it was a real conflagration because the place was stocked with noxious and flammable cleaning fluid, paint, and all sorts of chemicals, and it was a real horror show. And it was a multiple alarm fire, and they called Rescue 4 down there. And Harry responded, and that day he was assigned not to go into the fire, but to stay on the sidewalk at the pump, making sure that the pump functioned and that the hose connections were maintained and everything else, and so there would be a steady stream and supply of water. And Harry was at the pump, and I don't know if he was facing the building or facing away from the building at that particular time, and there was another fireman right nearby. And the next thing you know, the facade of the building collapsed, and Harry was buried and crushed by an avalanche of brick and mortar. And he and the other firemen died, and 2 others died in that fire. It was the worst fire department disaster in decades, and the worst one until later that year. Of course, 9/11 made history. His wife, Denise, who was a Nassau County politician, lovely gal, told me years later that when she went to Elmhurst Hospital to identify Harry's body in the morgue, when they removed the covering on his body, she said, "Rudy, he was covered. Every inch of his body from head to toe was covered in cuts and bruises and fractures." She says there was not 1 inch that was spared. She says it was horrendous. And, of course, Harry, lives on in the memory of everybody in the fire department. His name is on the side of the Rescue 4 truck as a memorial to Harry Ford. And his son, Harry Jr., took up the ambition of Harry, and he became a firefighter, FDNY guy, and he ended up for a time at Rescue 4. And he lived on to represent Harry in the next generation. And as I said, Harry lives on in all our memories, and he's still, and everybody in the fire department knows the story of Harry Ford. And the irony of the whole thing is that Harry Ford was the guy who we thought could run through a brick wall, and his life was taken by a brick wall. Never knew what hit him. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another episode of Uncommon Law. Lessons they don't teach in law school. I'm Judge Rudy Greco. Court is adjourned.